benefit of our ranching partners and the greater ranching community through the work of our programs department. At the end of the day, conserving the land is only the first part of our mission. Making sure ranchers have access to the resources and tools they need to steward the land is just as vital. This webinar today is part of our ongoing commitment to bring these educational resources to the ranching community. We've hosted a number of webinars that range from insurance coverage to wildfire production, as well as third-party verification programs. You can find all of our past webinars on our YouTube channel. We'll drop a link in the chat for you to access those resources. We'll also drop a link to our website in the chat if you would like to learn more about our organization. With that, I'm going to hand it off to our Conservation Technical Assistant, Sarah, who will be moderating the discussion today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining, and thank you for the intro, Robin. So this webinar series has been broken down into 2 sessions. Today's session is more of a company comparison. So a representative for each of the 4 main virtual fence companies that we see being used in California are going to share more about what their products look like in practice. And then following up, a rancher is going to speak about their experiences with each of the products on their own operation. So we're not really going to be diving into the exact what virtual fence is and how it works. That will all be in the virtual fencing primer that you should have gotten if you registered for the webinar series. But if not, we're also going to link it in the chat. That gives a really good background of everything you need to know about virtual fence. And then it also gives some more resources about things like research being done. So if you want to reference that as we go along, that will be available to you. During the presentation, we're going to have each representative and rancher go, and then we'll open it up to 1 to 2 questions, which Robin will be reading through. So feel free to, in the chat, type a question if you have one. If we don't get around to your question after each presentation, we're also going to have a live Q&A at the end. So we'll open it up to more at that time. And then next week at the same time on Thursday, we're going to have another session, which is more of a cost comparison. So the representatives are going to be back sharing more about their pricing structures. And then afterwards, I will be presenting funding opportunities that are available if you're interested in implementing that on your own property. Just so you're aware, the webinar will be recorded and shared next week. So if you want to go back and look at the recording, if you didn't have time to take notes or something, that'll be available to you next week. And we're also going to drop some more resources there as well. So without further ado, we're going to get started with our first rancher, which is our first presenter, which is Nathaniel Slickert with Vents. And then following him will be Matt Byrne, the rancher.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. My name is Nathaniel Slickert. I've been with Vents now for about 4.5 years. I currently live in Washougal, Washington, where I've been living here for the last 2.5 years, but I'm really California raised. I spent a good part of 60 years in Northern California in Mendocino County and Santa Cruz County, and still consider it very much my home. What I'd like to share with you today is what's going on in my territory. I cover for Vents, Washington, Oregon, and California as a territory manager. And I'm here to highlight what distinguishes Vents from other product offerings for virtual fence. So let me share my screen here. We'll get started. Okay, try to go into presentation mode here. There we go. Okay, I'd like to start by just sharing what I believe are the 3 words that characterize our product the best, and that is scalability, flexibility, and partnerships. Vents initially, when it started in 2016, was surveying where the needs were to foster and promote better land management with cattle using flexible tools such as virtual fencing. And we decided that we wanted to focus on expansive rangelands and the large cattle operations that work those lands. So scalability has been at the top of our list of focus. And of course, what is defined by virtual fencing is flexibility, and I'll be talking about that as well. But to be successful at implementing virtual fencing, you can't do it alone. It takes a community, it takes a village, it takes partners to work with. And so I'll be talking about that and how we foster those relationships. First of all, regarding scalability, we are built for expansive landscapes and addressing the needs of large cattle operations on those landscapes. And the result of our efforts over the past 6 years since our product has been commercially available, we've established the largest footprint on public lands, Forest Service, BLM, et cetera. And one of the reasons we've been able to scale is the ability to deploy LoRaWAN technology in a manner that that provides a very expansive range of coverage utilizing a network of base stations. And you can see in the photo, the bottom photo here, an example of one of our base stations. And I'll just say that we boast the largest range of coverage with our base stations, where we can realize optimal performance within a 10-mile radius. And then because of this scalability, we're able to provide large area containment on very large grazing lands across the landscape. And one other thing that supports our model of scalability is the ability for the collars to manage the cattle, even if they are outside of coverage of our base stations. And this is an example of the type of coverage we can provide with our base stations. The green areas is what you see as being considered good to excellent coverage. And this green area that you're looking at now is roughly about 100,000 acres that is coverage provided by 3 base stations at strategic locations. So we pick high points and ridge lines where we can typically get a cell signal to our base station. And those also provide the best vantage points for coverage to communicate with our collars. Now on to flexibility. I mentioned that the collars can work autonomously. You can pre-program up to 16 paddocks in the form of polygons. These are your virtual boundaries. And those paddocks can be scheduled to be turned on and turned off according to a calendar format. And in addition to containment boundaries, you can have multiple exclusion zones as well, pre-programmed into the collar. And once they're programmed into the collar, again, that collar can act autonomously, whether the cow moves out of coverage or not, or remains in coverage. We can, again, I mentioned we support multiple exclusion areas. If you've got riparian areas or other sensitive habitats that need excluding, then we can support those in various configurations. Then we provide a platform for our users, both on a computer platform as well as a mobile app. And in addition to being able to track your animals on large landscapes, and one of the big benefits of that feature is, especially during gathering time, when your animals could be scattered all over the landscape, you know where to send your riders to go find them and gather them, and greatly reduce your gathering time from sometimes as long as months down to days. we also provide historical distribution data of cattle location. You can specify a specific a window of time, and we can provide a snapshot in the form of a heat map, or you can play a video of that distribution over time, as I'm demonstrating now with this little illustration here, to see how your cattle are using the landscape and make decisions on how to modify your grazing plan accordingly. And then we and also our ranchers could not succeed without the participation of relationships that we have built with various parties that are interested in the health of our grazing lands. And that includes government agencies, nonprofits. We've partnered a lot with the researching community, conservation districts, et cetera. And we've put our ranchers in touch with those funding partners that are going to make it as easy as possible for them to adopt this technology. And what we've seen in these relationships is that multiple objectives are being met through the adoption of this technology that meet both the goals of conservationists as well as our ranching community. And in order to realize that success too, that we believe that support is ongoing from the very time that you engage us to the distant future of your operation. It's a learning experience, jumping into virtual fencing, and we're here to learn with you and to take you on that journey toward a successful operation using our product. And one example of how partnerships have worked for us in the event of wildfires, post-wildfire in 2024 in the state of Oregon, hit a lot of cattle producers hard. And one example is in Gillon County, Oregon, where we helped facilitate some partnerships post-fire to enable them to get producers in their county back on their grazing lands within a matter of months. So from the time that that the fires swept through this county, what the Gillum County Soil and Water Conservation District was able to do was procure emergency funding, and as soon as they were able to get that funding in hand, they were able to deploy within a few months to get their producers back on the landscape with their cattle. And so we were really proud to be a part of that partnership. And speaking of partnership, I have with me Matt Byrne, and I would let him introduce himself. And again, our partnership with UC Extension or UC A&R, I think really helped Matt adopt virtual fencing, and I'll let him tell his story on that front.
Robin, can you hear me?
You're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Matt Byrne. I grew up in Modoc County. My family runs cattle on the Devil's Garden in the summertime and on a number of leased properties in the Sacramento Valley in the wintertime. Our virtual fencing experience is all in Modoc County, and we're entering now our third year of using virtual fence. We've been working with Vince and the University of California from the beginning of that time, and just kind of quickly over the last 3 years, we've gone from, I'd say, proving to ourselves in a series of kind of small, not keep a cow out of over there, that we can get probably 85 to 90% adherence, as long as we're not asking the cattle to do too many irrational things. So long as they've got water and feed and mineral, and their calves aren't running around on the highway and this and that, then yeah, we've had good success. We have 2 base stations that are in our main project area, and that's covering about 50,000 acres. That's historically been a 550 cow forest permit. And the first year we collared all 550 cows, and we more or less followed our historic schedule, but we started breaking our 10,000 acre fields into 2 or 3 pieces. Hang on, my neighbor's driving by. Hang on.
Gotta love that. Okay.
He was stopping to brag about how his trailer and side by side are bigger than my trailer and side by side. And unfortunately, he wasn't wrong. So anyway, yeah, we're on about 50,000 acres. It's six fenced pastures, and most of those are in the 8 to 10,000 acre range. What we've had very good success with is, as long as we've got adequate water sources, taking those larger fenced pastures and breaking them down. And so 2,500 to 3,000 acres, still large in a lot of contexts, but compared to anything we've ever had experience with, it's relatively small. And kind of over the first year, we just proved that we could keep the cattle in the areas that we wanted. And we more or less used the standard forest schedule, which is you're here for so many days, you're here for so many days. In the second year, we got a little more buy-in from our forest folks and began doing some enhanced monitoring, kind of tracking our forage use, and started to get to a point where we predicated our cattle movements off of the use of forage rather than just the calendar. So we kind of had 2 different ways to measure what we were doing, how many days, and then how much feed of the available have we used. There's a target of 50% that is the maximum, and we were able to demonstrate through regular assessments that we weren't ever, getting past that statutory limit. And so that was last year, and we used rather than using virtual fence as a kind of we'll try it here, we'll try it there, we set up an entire summer grazing plan that was based on that. And ultimately, at the end of the year, we grazed a few more cows. We used the areas we did use. We used a greater percentage of the feed, not massive, but greater. I think going from like 10% to 25 or 30%. And we also, because we were moving slightly slower through our grazing rotation, we ended up creating a lot of rested areas that would otherwise not have gotten full rest. So kind of an interesting outcome. You can either graze all the cows everywhere all the time, or you can push them into smaller areas and measure your feed. And either way, you don't get every acre grazed, either because the cattle are spread out and they're not touching lots of areas, or you have them tighter, but there's areas you just never get to because you run out of days before you run out of feed. And then this year we've expanded, and we're on about 2,000 collars out on 5 different herds. The main herd that we've been working with, we've added a few more head to, and the forest is allowing us to kind of measure how those results are going to come out. It's a kind of 1 year test, no major change long term, but it's allowing us to test some things that we probably wouldn't have been able to before. We also are starting to use we put 4 more towers out this winter, and that's allowing us to run some collared herds on 2 other permits that we didn't have service around. So we're now covering closer to 150,000 acres, and we've got those 5 herds distributed across multiple allotments and now multiple ranger districts. So we're kind of working with a new suite of our key landlords, which would be the Forest Service, and then additionally the Fish and Wildlife Service on an adjacent wildlife refuge. And I think what we've learned is, as long as our expectations are reasonable, our results are good. If our expectations get unreasonable, then the results do start to suffer. And that's both with how well the cattle do what they're supposed to do, and it's also with how well our landlords react when we're keeping it in the middle of the road versus driving in the bar pit too often.
Thanks,
I might stop there for a minute and see if that's all you need, or you got anything more you want me to cover in particular.
I mean, you nailed it on timing. Like 12:23 was on my agenda and it is 12:23. So
Perfect.
kudos there. Quick question for you. What do you think was the hardest part about implementing it with your herd?
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to take 12 minutes to answer that question. So,
Perfect.
I think the hardest part is honestly the thinking that it requires, because our standard operating procedure before was, we meet at daylight, we say, what are we going to do today? And then we go do it. Whereas when you add the virtual fencing, you now have you have a lag of, if we're going to move these cows, first we have to take all the fence down, and that's going to take time. So there's a lot more coordination. So I would say the cowboys are probably not working as hard, but I'm probably working harder in terms of planning more so. And then kind of while you're asking that question, it makes me think of one of the proof points I think that I found most interesting was pretty early on. Our mostly Spanish-speaking cowboy crew, I started sending them some screenshots of, here's the map and here's where the cows are. And, first I've said, hey, we have to put these collars on, and that's work. It's not impossible, especially if you already have the cattle in the chute, but it's an extra thing to do. And then we have to go turn them out in these areas, and then we're going to keep them over here instead of just turn them out and let them go wherever they want. And so I'm kind of like 3 strikes in the hole to begin with. And then I start sending them these pictures on their phones, and they're like, why is this guy sending me all this stuff? But then on the second day, I got a phone call at noon, and the guy says, hey, I need another picture because we already got all those cows and we want to know where the rest are. And so I took that for 2 things. Number one, it's great. They don't want to waste their time any more than I want to waste my time, or I want them wasting their time riding around in circles. And they're seeing value from it. As a guy chasing the cows and pushing them from here to there, or else they wouldn't bother asking for me to give them more of the same. And so I thought that was a very good early indicator that the people who are on the ground managing the cattle were seeing benefits from the things that we were doing that maybe seemed a little removed at first, because it's cool you can see your cows on your phone, but just seeing them on your phone doesn't really get anything done.
Yeah. So you mentioned having to plan ahead for taking down the fences. How long does it take with Vince to remove a fence or shut off a fence?
Mm-hmm. So the results depend a little bit on where the cattle are in their service. So there's 2 ways to do it. Nathaniel described, you can, if you know your schedule in advance, you can program everything, months ahead, and it happens instantaneously at a predetermined time. The process that we're in is more adaptive, where we don't know on May 1st if we're going to move cows on May 10th or May 12th, and so we kind of have to wait. One of the ways, and so it could take a matter of a few hours. And so if you can do it the night before, usually it's done by morning. If you start the morning of, then you're going to have a hard time. Because the same guy also called me and chewed me out pretty hard when I didn't have the vents down, and he got cattle to the boundary and they started going haywire. So, again, that planning and coordination is really important. And so one way we've gotten around it, and one of the things that it wasn't number one in the sales literature, but I think it's become a very important part of how we've changed our management, is we're able to use multiple fences set up because the boundaries operate as a one-way barrier. So the cattle can walk through one way and they're prevented from walking back the other way. So now as we're creating a pasture move, we will open the second fence maybe a week before we want to move the cattle. And by the time we've gone through that process, we may have 50 or 60% of the cattle have already kind of moved themselves over. They've captured themselves in the new area, and then they can't get back. And so that's actually reduced a lot of what we had before, which was like big, long days where you're going to take 500 cows and you're going to go 10 miles. If you can get them, somewhere close to the gate to start with, then that day is only, half as long as it otherwise might have been. And so that has been a really valuable way to, it takes time, but if you know it takes time, you can plan on how to make that time work to your advantage.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you. I hope you guys can both hang on till the end when we have more time for more questions, but we really appreciate all of that.
Thank you both. So our next presenters are going to be Jack Dufour and Steph Mathis with No Fence.
All right, thank you. Let me see if I can be as punctual as you were. I'll get my screen going and won't waste any time. All right, everybody good? Can you see my first slide?
Yes, I'm just trying to get you spotlighted. Sorry. Okay, now we're good.
All right, I'll jump right into it. Like I said, see if I can be as punctual as Matt was. So yeah, I'm assuming most of you are coming from the context of familiarity with virtual fencing, potentially at the point of implementing it and making the next decision, which is which provider to go with. And I will be the first to say that all of the providers in the US are excellent. They all offer a great product and a great service, and you can't go wrong with any of them. But that being said, we do all kind of target slightly different operations and have different pros and cons. So my intention here is to give you a real quick overview of what I would say the pros of no fence are. And if any of these resonate with you, it might be a sign that it's worth continuing the conversation. So my name is Jack. I live in Southern Oregon. I'm not in California, I'm afraid, but I'm just 20 miles north, so I'm not far. I graze a small herd of Angus and Hereford here on my property, and I'm a no fence user myself. So the first thing that I think of with no fence is the flexibility. We're flexible just in a number of different ways. The first of which would be the types of operations. Oops, I jumped a slide. Our different types of connectivity. I saw a question come up in the chat about this just recently. So no fence collars connect to cell towers and GPS satellites and Bluetooth. So we have those 3 layers of connectivity that offer some redundancy. If you're grazing in an area where the signal for one is spotty, the other 2 can kind of help compensate. We lean on the cell towers in an attempt to take advantage of those cell towers that already exist rather than asking a producer to buy a tower for their property. So we can have a lower infrastructure cost because of that. And one of the most common misconceptions about that is that a lot of people think, oh, I can't do that because, when I'm out on my land with where I graze, my cell phone doesn't get good signal. And that's a logical conclusion because the collars do connect to the same towers as your cell phone does, but they connect on a totally different band. And that band is intended to reach much more rural, remote areas. So we have a lot of no fence users grazing with great connectivity in areas where their cell phones get no signal whatsoever. There's more to talk about there, but I'd be happy to talk about that on a case-by-case basis with people. We're very flexible with the operations we work with. We can start with herds as small as 5 head and go all the way up to 5,000. So small, medium, large operations, that's really a benefit for large operations too, because virtual fencing is a new concept to a lot of people. It's intimidating to shift 500 head over to virtual fencing in one day. So you can start small and we can kind of grow with you. And as you build confidence, we can outfit more of your herd with more collars if it's appropriate. We do offer cattle collars. We also offer sheep and goat collars, so we can handle all the main grazing species. Our payment terms are pretty flexible as well. We have no contracts. You're not stuck with anything. We trust that you'll stick around because it's actually providing value to your operation. You can also actually pause your subscription when you're not using it. If you bring your animals in over winter and you're not grazing, just pause everything, don't pay a dime for the subscription, and reactivate when you turn out in the spring and pick up where you left off. We also try to be as flexible as possible with letting you test it out. We give a 90-day money-back guarantee, so you can try up to 100 collars on your animals, on your property, in real conditions, feel it out, and if you're not happy with it for any reason at all, you can return it for a full refund minus shipping. Our collar design offers a lot of flexibility in the fit. Those stainless steel chains that wrap around the neck of the collar, the neck of the animal, are actually what deliver the electric pulse to the animal. So whether you fit the collar a little too loose, a little too tight, just right, those stainless steel chains are going to deliver a good electric pulse. So what that means for you as the rancher is less time dialing in just the right fit in the chute, or less times that you need to bring your herd back through the chute mid-season to adjust the size for growing animals or any animals that might be changing body condition. Beyond flexibility, ownership is another thing that stands out about no fence. That applies to really, both your data and your hardware. I'd say the data is one of the most frequent phone calls I get. People want to work with no fence for understanding that the user, the rancher, owns their data, and therefore they own and are entitled to any future economic compensation for carbon sequestration or regenerative management, those types of things. There's no question marks there. So we say it in plain English on our terms and conditions that we will not sell or share your information with any third party. You also own the hardware, the collars themselves, and that allows you to enjoy a long life of grazing with collars without a long life of lease fees that accompany them. Speed, I would say speed is another thing that stands out about no fence in a number of ways. We can get you grazing this month. From the time you place your order to the time the collars arrive at your door is just a couple of weeks. And once they arrive at your door, they're pretty much ready to go. You just need to charge up the batteries and you can hit the ground running. It's just really straightforward, really intuitive, really simple. I'd say the majority of no fence users actually never contact anybody on any employee of no fence because it's just straightforward, intuitive, and fast. Once you're actually using the collars, it's very quick to react to your needs. So from the time, this was a question, from the time that you change a boundary on your app or remove a boundary till the time that is actually in effect on your animals is just a matter of minutes. 5 minutes is typical. If you're in an area with strong coverage, it would more likely be about 2 minutes. If in an area with poor coverage, it could be as much as 10 or 15 minutes. No Fence is established. We were the first commercially available virtual fence company in the world. We were founded in Norway back in 2011, and we have over 10,000 people using using no fence collars. So, I can tell you all day how great no fence is. I'm biased. I really encourage people to talk to their neighbors. There is someone near you using no fence, and I would really encourage you to talk to them and hear about their experience with it. So people come to us for virtual fencing. We're called No Fence. We do virtual fencing. It's all about the fence, but there's so much more that virtual fencing can give you than just the containment of your animals. My favorite one is probably herd replay, and that's exactly what it sounds like. You can rewind in time and watch a replay of any individual or the whole herd, their movement across your land. So I think the most common story I hear about that, I love this one throughout the spring, is finding lost calves. I hear a lot of stories about people going out to visit their herd or move their herd, and they see a cow that had recently given birth, but they don't see a calf anywhere nearby. They're ready to move to a new paddock. They don't want to leave the calf behind, so they don't know what to do. You can identify that cow on your app and rewind and watch the last 24 hours movement of it. And I always hear something like, I see that animal in the replay. She separated herself last night for 6 hours from the herd and went under the forest edge and laid under a tree for 6 hours without moving. I wonder if that's where she dropped the calf. Sure enough, you go walk into the tree, look for the calf, and there it is. The collars also give you reduced activity alerts. So the collar will notify you on your phone. You'll get a notification if any individual reduces the amount of movement that would be typical for that individual. So this is intended to detect early signs of sickness or calving or some sort of injury. And it can detect this often much sooner than you can just with your eyes doing a quick skimming over of your herd. You'll get a notification again immediately as soon as that happens. Escape notifications are also very valuable too. Unlike traditional fencing, with traditional fencing, your herd can escape or an individual can escape. You might not know for hours or days. And even once you do find out, you don't know which direction to start looking for them. With no fence, you get an escape notification as soon as it happened, so that you know immediately. And you can also locate the exact location on your app of that individual, so you know where to find it. You can either go physically, if you're there in person, you can go physically correct the situation and bring the animal back. Or if you're in town running errands, you can actually redraw the boundaries around that individual and use the virtual fence to kind of push that individual back to where it's supposed to be. So I want to make sure I leave as much time for Steph to speak as possible. So that's just, like I said, a quick overview. If any of those things resonate with you, that might be a good indication that no fence would be a good fit for your operation. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to me or anybody on our team, and happy to discuss your operation more and see if it's a good fit.
Jack. Steph, do you have service now?
I do. Hi, my name is Stephanie Mathis, and excuse the fact that I'm in a vehicle. I picked up to California, so my mom is driving while I'm videoing. I live just north of Santa Barbara, and I'm using no fence on about 70 goats right now. Soon to be 100. I've got 30 doelings. I'm gonna collar this next week. And anyways, it's been a fabulous product. Number one, it's the only one that has collars currently for goats and sheep. At least it was in the last 6 months. So fabulous. And they talked about all the perks of the Bluetooth, and he's fibbing. Whatever, it literally sends it to the herd, and it's within minutes, a minute or two, and my whole herd, I'm moving them, and the fences are completely set. It's so primarily my husband and I, we run cattle on a large ranch, and I am taking these goats to areas of the ranch that are just not productive cattle areas, lots of brush, poison oak, dense forest, etc. And I'm grazing these goats for fire and weed abatement, and also making a meat product. I sell the kids in our area for their meat goats, boars. So anyways, yeah, they've been great to work with. You call in, if you have a problem, you call in, you get a real human. That's my favorite part, because I am not techie. And the fact that I can use the technology without any problems is also a testament to how fabulous their product is, because it's very simple and easy to use. And like I said, when you need to talk to a real human, they pick up the phone, they help you out, they whatever. And it's been a great experience for me. I'm currently building my herd, so I can't talk running it on thousands of head yet, but I'm hopefully working that way. So do you guys have any questions?
Great, Steph. Thank you. Do you guys use virtual or collars on your cattle at this time, or mainly just the goats?
Oh, currently we're just using them on the goats. The cattle, our cattle situation is a little tougher. We don't have large enough water sources to bunch our cattle in large herds yet. And so because of that, we haven't used collars on our cattle. We have to kind of keep them spread out as the water allows.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Steph. And then, Jack, we had a question. Can you describe the satellite Bluetooth integration?
Yeah, so Steph hinted at this a little bit. The Bluetooth is used for the collars to communicate to one another. So that helps us in areas where there is some cell coverage, but it's spotty. So the idea there is that only one member of the herd needs to be in an area with just a tiny bit of cell signal. And then that individual's collar will kind of act as the transmitter for the rest of the herd. So the Bluetooth allows the whole herd to kind of act as a mesh network. We only need one collar to get that little bit of cell signal. That helps us in areas of spotty coverage. If the herd wanders into an area with truly no coverage, even with that band that I was describing that reaches rural, remote areas, the animals are still contained by the GPS satellites. They can, the boundaries are still enforced. That all operates like normal, but the data is not communicated back to your app in that scenario. So what you lose out on in that scenario is you cannot monitor the real-time location of the individuals, things like that. So definitely having just a little bit of cell signal provides a much more robust, nice experience. But even if it does go into an area with truly no cell signal, not even enough for that one collar to connect, the animals remain contained. They do not just run free.
Got it. Perfect. Well, thank you both. Really appreciate it. And we hope you can hang on till the end because there's lots of questions coming in.
So our next presenter is with Gallagher E. Shepherd, Cheyenne Lambley, and then rancher Leslie Honeywell.
Oops. Oops. Maybe. Okay. Hello, everyone. All right. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yep, that looks great.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Cheyenne Lambley. I am with Gallagher E. Shepherd. I am on our customer engagement team. So I will be giving you the background of E. Shepherd and how we got to where we are today, along with some of our features. And then we will hear from our current customer and user, Leslie Honeywell. So a little bit about our virtual fencing system. So Gallagher actually invented the electric fence 88 years ago. So we have been around for many decades. A lot of the product components that have gone into our neckband had been proven and around for many, many years. So we have other animal management solutions alongside our virtual fencing system. So that's going to be one of the key differentiators that we have to offer. Is we also offer auto weighers, liquid monitors, EID readers, some of those other animal management products that are really going to bring value and sustainability to operations. So we're working on having that one cohesive dashboard where you can open up the Gallagher app, you can see not only your virtual fencing system, but your daily gains of your animals, and the other animal management tools that you have on your farm or ranch as well. We are a global company, so we are in 14 countries and counting as of today. Our headquarters is in Hamilton, New Zealand. As far as here in the States, our warehouse is in Kansas City. So all of our billing and shipping is done out of our Kansas City office here in the States. So the battery component, it is a solar charged battery, so no maintenance, no changing or charging needed with that battery. As I mentioned, it is built on years and years of experience. So I will go into kind of our neckband and some of the key differentiators as far as the eShepherd system goes. So eShepherd is a solar powered GPS enabled neckband that you would install on your animals. And then it is your boundaries can be drawn on your computer or your phone. So we do have a web and a mobile app. We do have two different forms of connectivity. So the first one is going to be that direct to cellular option. So the neckband can speak directly to the cell network. We go off of the LTE-M band of network. So if you can send and receive a text message, that neckband can communicate. The other option is our LoRa or LoRaWAN base station option. So if you do not have that adequate cellular coverage, we would do a base station assessment of the property to see how many base stations would be needed. A few things to point out about our base stations. They can be disassembled and moved. So if you have a seasonal lease or you pick up an additional property, you can move those base stations. If you're working with your neighbor, you can share the coverage those base stations have to offer. And some customers have chosen to make them mobile. That does void the warranty. It comes with a 3-year warranty, but some operations have chosen to go that route. As far as use case, as I mentioned, we are global. We're in the brush of northern Canada to the panhandle of southern Texas and rangelands and plains, everywhere in between. So as far as our ideal customer, we really just want to get to know the rancher, get to know their interest in virtual fence and make sure that we are going to provide the right solution for them. Minimum herd size is going to be 20. So we do have producers that have 20 neckbands, up to 2,000. As far as on globally, we have over 100,000 neckbands on and in use. We are on public and private lands. The producer does own their data. We're not sharing any of that information. But most of our producers are cow-calf producers. We are effective on bulls. We do offer an XL chain for the larger neck size. We do have a heat map and a track map available, so you can see when you turn your bulls out where they're at, and have those breeding windows tightened up as well. So minimum herd size is going to be 20, but we are on stockers as well. Obviously, with a growing animal, you would have to adjust the neck size at 6 to 8 weeks, depending on your daily gains. But yeah, mostly cow-calf producers. Minimum weight is going to be 440 pounds to put the neck band on an animal. But as far as changing out, no changing of the batteries or charging, just obviously adjusting if you have them on a growing animal at around 6 to 8 weeks. So Gallagher's been around for 88 years. We stand behind animal welfare, and our products and solutions have been proven for years and years. And we're going to continue to grow and make it the best that it can be. We are working on the Bluetooth mesh coming out soon, along with emergency off beacon in case of an emergency and we need those neck bands to be turned off immediately. Right now, the cadence check-in can go down to 15 minutes. Obviously, that does depend on where your animals are at and what kind of communication you have. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our current eShepherd customer, Leslie Honeywell, along with her brother. She is a 6th generation cattle rancher operating in rangelands in California and Nevada. So Leslie, I will hand it over to you.
As Cheyenne said, I'm Leslie Honeywell here with my brother Blair. We operate over 2 states, Nevada and California. We are primarily cow-calf producers. And most of our grazing is done on BLM and Forest Service grazing leases. And our cattle spend anywhere from 10 to 11 and a half months out on public land. So they don't come into the corrals often, which is why we were really glad to have the solar panel option to charge the batteries. We just started using eShepherd in October. And our largest grazing permit is about 230,000 acres. And that's the one herd that we chose to start with. There are virtually no fences on this big permit that we have, the BLM permit. There used to be some drift fences, but they're basically gone. We had a really dry summer last year where we didn't get any summer rain. And then we have feral horses as well out here. This particular permit in the pictures is in Nevada. And so we used the virtual fence to push our cattle up and away from the feed that they normally would like because it wasn't there. So we were accessing and utilizing portions of land that was historically hard for us to keep cattle up there. And we also, it was a really wonderful tool for us to use while we were gathering. We cut our very first gather utilizing the fence usually took us about 3 days with the crew of 6 to 8 people. And we would have to go back and kind of find individual cows that had gone off somewhere for a few days after that. This year, when we gathered them, from the time we were horseback to the time all the cattle were in our gather corral was less than 6 hours, which was incredible for us. Larry, you want to add?
Yeah, so we had split on this Garfield Flat Whiskey Flat allotment. We had split our 480 cows into 5 paddocks, and then in a month before gather, we shipped some off to another paddock. So we had a very spread out, and the virtual fence made it nice during the gather. We weren't bringing a whole bunch of cows and calves into the corral that then you had to try and pair up and maybe turn a cow out if you left her calf back and things like that. And then I went out with a range scientist to evaluate our efforts, and the results of the regrowth were very, very positive. And it's so we're excited to give parts of the range a rest and focus on grazing new spots. And whereas before you just, if you got snow, they could go wherever they want. And even if you wanted to give a spot a rest, they could get to it in the wintertime if they really wanted to. So
On our on the screen on the kind of the right hand side, we that's our largest permit. That's the one that's about 230,000 acres. We had 4 base stations out there while we were utilizing it, and that covered close to 200,000 acres of that. And we probably could have placed them a little bit differently and been just as fine with had just as good coverage with 3. So that was really, really great. You on the left side of the screen is our main headquarters. So we have a ranch in California, so over on the left side, and then way up at the top on the left hand side is our Nevada ranch. So we have those 2 places where we have a virtual fence, and then all of the kind of the larger area outlined in white, those are more of our permits. So this coming in October, we'll be expanding. We'll be putting collars on another 300 or 400 head. And so we'll be grazing in 7 or 8, potentially 9 different areas throughout the winter. And the herds all meet up for summer grazing, roughly around where all the purple landmark bubbles are. Those were just we're sharing base stations with a neighbor, and we were plotting out where we're going to put those. So they're also using eShepherd. So in the summer, it's a real our challenge is the terrain. It's very mountainous, a lot of draws, a lot of canyons. So we're working out the best coverage for that. But there's also a lot of sensitive habitat up in those hills. And so we're working with other organizations to kind of keep cattle, out of a certain place or in a certain place, so that we can better utilize the range and also protect sensitive species.
Amazing. Thank you. It's really nice to be able to see the screen view. Okay, you guys brought up some really interesting stuff. So sharing the base stations, can you talk more about that? How does that work exactly?
So we have our neighbor, we share that kind of along where the purple bubbles are, that's the boundary fence between our permits to the right and hers to the left. And because it is so there's so many highs and lows all throughout that area. And she's got a limited number of base stations, and we'd like to move some base stations around in order to get the best coverage. So sharing those base stations gives her flexibility and gives us the flexibility to kind of put things where we need to without stretching things too thin. And maybe an area would be left without coverage if we weren't sharing them. So we have a share up at the top. You can see where it says Honeywell Land and Livestock in the black. There's also another shared property that would be Honeywell and Fullstone Bodie Hills permit. And so we can go on there and look at what base stations are online. If we have a problem and some callers aren't communicating, we can see which base station it is and who needs to go up there and take care of it or look around. But we don't see their callers. So all of their callers and their rotations and everything, only our neighbor can see that. So we just can see the shared base stations. We can't see any of their activity.
That's super interesting. Thank you for sharing about that. And Cheyenne, a question came up as far as you mentioned having it on bowls. Are you able to use just the virtual fence and have a bowl in the same paddock and keep it out? And then does that tend to increase the number of pulse counts or, shocks? Because we know bowls can be pretty dense.
Yes, absolutely. Effective on bowls. I know, Leslie, maybe you can speak directly from your experience as well. But yes, I had a customer running a group of bulls exposed to cows, a group of bulls exposed to heifers. and just the virtual fence line was in between them. So the bulls are very respectful of the virtual fence. We have herds in the Southern Hemisphere of strictly bulls. But yes, and I guess Leslie, maybe you can speak directly from your experience with bulls.
Yeah, the collars that we had on the bulls, we found that the bulls were in many cases more sensitive than the cows. So it was pretty easy. We didn't have any issues with the bulls at all. It was some cows that were the problem children.
That's super interesting. Great. Thank you. Thank you all. That was really, really interesting and informative. All right, we'll jump to our last one.
Lastly, we have Charlotte Mondale with Halter, and then she's joined by Tyler Dolly.
Thanks, guys. Let me just get this up. Cool. Well, hopefully this won't be too repetitive, but welcome to the Halter presentation. My name is Charlotte. I cover Northern California. As of very recently, we now have a Southern California rep as well. Her name is Elena, and she'll be covering basically everything south of kind of the Bay Area, roughly. I wanted to just do a brief overview, but would love to jump into more specific questions as we go through. Let's see. So Halter is originally a New Zealand-based company. We've been around commercial for over 8 years, and we're now live in 3 countries. We've been in the US for almost 2 years now, and it's been a pretty exciting growth trajectory over the last couple of years. We've got over 1 million collars on cows around the world, and counting. The halter collars, this is kind of an image of what they look like in terms of functionality. They're all completely solar based and adjustable. So the hardware of the collar will allow you to do see live GPS location of all the animals. As I mentioned, they're entirely solar powered, so there's no swapping or charging batteries. And those solar panels sit on the top of the animals' necks in order to have best access to sunlight. We've done a lot of testing for ergonomics and animal welfare and just making sure they fit really comfortably. And we take that initial collaring process very seriously because we want to make sure that they're fitting really well up front, and not need a ton of adjustment going forward. And then, like a lot of our counterparts, we use sensory cues in order to guide cattle. The major update in the last couple months is that Halter previously was based on towers, and Tyler, when he speaks, is currently running on towers. But we are rolling out commercial direct-to-satellite collars, which means we no longer need any additional infrastructure beyond the collars in order for them to work no matter the landscape. So this was really designed specifically for us to be able to operate on those really rugged and expansive landscapes around the US. So coming into this year, we had, I think, 1 California rancher operating on Forest Service land. And by the end of this year, it'll be closer to 15 or 20, which is really exciting. Those folks are getting collars on this summer, and I'll be really excited to kind of revisit this conversation once we've got some reps under our belt using the direct satellite collars on those landscapes. But we've been testing them, and everything has gone really well, and we're really excited about what this kind of unlocks for the future of virtual fence. So like most of the other collars that we've been talking about, as I mentioned, we've got these sound cues. The halter collar has a speaker on the left and the right side. So when an animal approaches that virtual boundary, she'll hear a tone either on the left or the right side, and that'll cause her to turn from pressure and be guided back into the area we want to hold him in. And that bidirectionality we find is really, really helpful for especially that initial training period, and letting animals understand what's going on more quickly. And then if they're not listening to those audio cues, that's when they get that pulse. And I think there was a question in the chat about this, and there are other vendors who have similar situations, but we've got a patented algorithm, fun word, for this individualized algorithm. So each individual animal will have different amounts of time to respond to that primary cue before they receive the secondary one. So what that means is if you've got a very rambunctious cow who's always pushing that boundary, she's going to get a little less time to respond to the audio cue before she gets a pulse. Similarly, or conversely, someone who maybe just gets nudged out by the herd will get a little bit more time. And we use that same algorithm across all of our products. So we also do things like reproductive tracking and behavioral insights. And so we're able to tailor everything to individual animals. So yeah, just as a broad overview, the main components of Halter are simply the collar and the app. So those are the two main features. That's what you're paying for with Halter Virtual Fence. And ultimately, our goal is to be a really holistic provider for virtual fencing, yes, but as everyone else has mentioned, it is so much more than just a replacement for fencing. And we're really hoping to help push people towards improving pasture and grazing management, better insights into individual animal behavior, and then ultimately improving and increasing cattle production and efficiency. And then sort of on our side of this, we do 3-year contracts with our ranchers. And that's us agreeing to these products working the way that we're saying they're going to, as well as providing 24/7 customer support. We have an amazing team based in Boulder, as well as in Auckland. So you'll be able to get on the phone with anybody at any time, as well as a territory manager, which would be me or Elena, depending on where in California you are, to kind of guide you through that journey and keep accountability to the goals you set and how you want to progress using virtual fence. And then also, I'm excited to have Tyler here to talk about this. We are constantly evolving. We're a pretty young and nimble company that is really striving to be the absolute best in virtual fencing for beef production in the US. So we take feedback and we churn out updates really quickly. And that's something we're really excited about. Tyler has really been sort of a power user for us and has asked for a lot of data insights and things that have really helped us drive progress. So I'm really excited to introduce Tyler from Big Bluff Ranch just outside Red Bluff in Northern California, and would love to just hear about your experience with Halter over the last 6 months or so.
Wow, 6 months. That's it's awesome. I mean, it's yeah. So basically, just be very aware. I'm incredibly biased. I am a huge fanboy of the Halter collars, so I am going to be extremely biased. I have no experience with anyone else, so I don't know. I'm a Halter fanboy. So I actually happen to have one of our collars sitting by, so I figured I'd grab it, do a little show and tell. So there's the collar itself. It's kind of blurring out. So you can have, your solar panels here, solar panels there, speaker on this side, speaker on that side, counterweight here down on the bottom to keep it all orientated right. And this one, no one mentioned it, but one of the things that we worried about a little bit was like, well, what happens if they get hung up on something? Does the, collar hold them in place? This guy's got this little breakaway spot. So this collar actually the cow was rubbing her head on a tree, got hung up on a little stub coming off, yanked the collar off. The app told me, hey, that collar hasn't moved for 3 days. And I'm like, well, I knew that beforehand. I walked out right to it and found it. So, it works. Like, it was like, hey, I know exactly where that is. And then we brought the cow back in, put a different collar on her, and off we went. I don't know if we're trying to convince people that this is a good idea or not, or where we're at in the journey, but all I have to say is that this thing works. I don't know about the other products, but this one works. It took way longer for the humans to figure out how to work this than the cows. So we put these collars on the cows December 20th, one of the most important days of my life. And I would say probably by Christmas that or even less. So 3 or 4 days after that, they knew exactly what the beeps meant and what the shock meant. And it took the human way longer to understand that, like, oh no, they've got it figured out. Stop messing with them so much. And so we ran cows through the winter grazing season here with these collars. We figured we doubled our stocking rate just putting the collars on. And that was through utilization, that we were able to send cows up, while humans were still learning how to use the technology and how cows were still learning to respond to it, we were able to move cows up hillsides that we had never had cows graze before our entire since 1960 when Grandpa bought the ranch. We've never had cows be able to go up and graze in those particular areas. And within 2 weeks or less of putting these collars on, we were pushing cows up draws and along hillsides that we had never, ever been able to graze. We've done lots of temporary fencing and, we have lots of electric fence. We've done a whole bunch of subdivisions over the years. So it's not as if we're new to high density grazing, but this took it to a whole nother level that we'd only ever dreamed of achieving. And I don't know what else to say about it. It's cool. So the other thing it's done for our operation is that through the years we've done grass-fed beef direct marketing, and that you can see in my background over this shoulder, those white hoops, that's actually pasture poultry, chickens raised on pasture. And we've gotten to the point now where we're doing like 40,000, 45,000 chickens on pasture a year, which is it's a big number in normal world. It's a very small number in the chicken world, but it is a big enough number that we lost the time to pay attention to our cows and do all the fun stuff on the rangeland. And so we've been kind of bringing down our cow numbers and messing around. And as soon as we put these collars on, within about 2 weeks, we realized that this was the promise, that this was the key, this was the unlock, and that we are ramping our animal numbers back up. We're bringing in custom grazing cows. So if anyone knows anyone in Northern California who needs some cows, give me a call, because we've got more grass and we've got collars than we know what to do with. So I don't know, I can just keep talking about this. The app is awesome. Like, it's absolutely true. I bet I could probably send a question to the help center and I'd get a response before I'm done talking. It's outrageous how fast they respond. The app is cool. Takes the humans way longer to learn it than the animals. It's awesome. I'm a fanboy. Call me if you have any questions. I don't know. Hey, anything else?
That's great, Tyler. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Let's see. We have a lot of questions that have rolled in. So I think as far as specific ones for you two, like I might just let we'll just start asking the broad questions. Is that okay with you guys? And then you can chime in on that. Okay, that sounds good. Then let's go ahead and get to that. So we'll bring everyone back together. Sorry, Tyler, I just left it on you.
I am the most important person, so I understand.
I'm a little slow on the spotlight sometimes. I'm trying. Okay. Here's everyone. Yay. Okay, so one of the main questions that was coming up that if each of the reps could try to answer like just pretty short and quick is how long do the collars last? And let's just start in the same order that you guys gave your presentation. So Nathaniel, if you want to jump on first, how long do your collars last?
So the collar hardware is designed to last years, we do have a battery that is a single-use battery. So the limitation there is the battery life. And so currently, depending on the use case that you're applying our product to, your battery life can last anywhere between 6 months to 18 months. But if you're going to do like intensive targeted grazing, you're going to tax that battery life pretty quickly and be changing it out multiple times a year. So that's something to keep in mind.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jack, what about your guys's?
We have a warranty of 5 years, so we guarantee that it'll be at least 5 years. If anything happens in that time, we'll replace it free of cost. We more realistically expect 7 to 10 years. The vast majority of the collars that we've ever made are still in use, so time will tell how much longer than 7 to 10 years they last.
Great, thank you. Cheyenne?
Our warranty is 3 years. We're expecting 7 to 10 years, and that's going to be based on our energizers with that similar solar battery. So we've been on in the Southern Hemisphere for 3 years, Northern Hemisphere for 2 years. The product itself has been in the making since 2015, but we know that we've been commercial for those 3 years. So yeah, 3-year warranty. Anything that happens within the first 3 years, expecting 7 to 10 years.
Great. And Charlotte?
So the halter collars are expected to last 6+ years, but we've got lifetime warranty on all of our hardware. So as long as you're working with halter, everything will be swapped or replaced for free.
Okay, great. And then another one that came up is just as far as how someone can figure out if coverage, like if your collar is going to work in their area, right? There's the different topography, the different satellite versus cell or this and that. So we'll do it backwards this time. We'll let Charlotte go first. How do you work with someone who's interested to find out if there's coverage that's going to work in the areas that they want to have their cattle or sheep or goats?
Yeah, absolutely. Now with direct to satellite, that is a much quicker process because a lot of people actually are running Starlink already, and that's what we're operating off of. So that's a pretty quick determination. But in general, we'll just do coverage assessment by checking out maps by GPS files and things like that.
Okay, so it doesn't need to be in person. It can be just more like they give you the areas.
Yeah, exactly. We can do it all remotely. We've got a team of communications engineers who kind of give it a pass. We're not going to deploy halter on any landscapes that we're not totally confident it's going to function on.
Okay. Thanks, Cheyenne.
Yep, so going to be similar as well. We look at the cell coverage maps to look at that direct to cellular option. If that is not adequate, then we would do the boundary map assessment. So we would look at the KMZ file on Google Earth. We have a team that specializes in those. And then we can turn the base station layers on and off to see what that coverage is provided. And then if we're kind of on the borderline, either way, you could go direct to cellular or have a base station. We do send out a walk test neckband to do that testing on site to verify which route would be the best.
Great. Jack?
So anyone considering no fence can get in touch with me or anyone on the team via phone or email, and we can tell you with about 99% certainty just from those conversations and some research we do whether or not it'll work. But for that final 1% of certainty, that's why we give the 90-day money-back guarantee. So we can give you, the 99% certainty it's worth a try, but then we'll give you 90 days to try it on your property and confirm that the connectivity is working as you expected and the product is working in every other way as expected. And if it's not working as you expected, return it for a full refund.
Great. And Nathaniel?
So for events, when you initially engage us, we will do a survey of your property and generate a coverage model. And that'll help us determine how many base stations and where to locate them to provide optimal coverage for your landscape. Every landscape is unique. And so we understand that we need to review that. We need to understand where cellular coverage is because the base stations do require a cell signal at this stage. So some ground truthing may be necessary, and we'll work with you on that as well.
Great. Thank you. Okay, now for the ranchers. Participants want to hear what it is that you like most about the apps or kind of the technology that you're using, what you can view and see. What do you like best and what are you utilizing the most beyond just the boundaries and barriers? So let's start with Tyler, and then if you can also remind folks like which company you're using. I mean, we know Tyler's using Halter because he's a fanboy, but the rest of you.
I am a fanboy. So it is absolutely true. You see people, I mean, I can't even help myself. I'm already checking my app right now. I'm like, where are the cows? Find out. They're right there. So you can move the fences just anytime you want. It's no problem. Halter takes 12 minutes to go from my phone to the collars, then they move. They have, it's coming data. I have some like early access to it, but my app will track grazing time, rumination time, walking time, standing time, so I can see. I don't exactly know what I'm seeing, but I'm suspecting and I'm learning some patterns that if I give them a on a good break that they tend to spend more time grazing and less time ruminating, stuff like that. They just are releasing out a grazing planning module. So if you guys use Pasture Map or use the old Holistic Management or Ranching for Profit pasture grazing planning chart, that is about to show up in the app. I don't know how far away it is for everyone else. I'm a fanboy. I got early access. Sorry. It's just super cool. I don't know. Got the picture. You can put notes on it and maps on it, or I don't know. 3D vision. It's yeah. I don't know. It's right there. I'm looking at my cows right now. So that would be it.
Perfect.
Someone else can now fanboy about their system, because I know anyone who uses this loves it. So someone else can now fanboy about their version.
Great. How about Leslie?
On the permits that we have, the water sources are kind of few and far between. One really cool thing that is super easy on the app is if so we use the water sources as a way to sort our cattle into groups if we need to. And so I can do that super fast on the app and just switch them over to a different herd. And then that herd goes, this way, the other herd goes this way. It's really easy to track where the cattle go as well. And the heat map has been a really useful tool.
So I love watching the tracking information when that came out on the handheld app this spring, just to see how far they travel, and also it's kind of amusing when you load them on a truck. You can, even when they're outside of the base station range, you can see all these dots traveling down the highway.
Awesome. Thank you. Steph, what about you? She might not be in a good section. Oh,
Sorry about that. So I love the heat map as well. It helps me see where the goats have grazed to make sure that I'm getting full coverage of the area if I need to shrink down my fencing or if I need to expand it. And then, I go and check to see how much forage is left for them. But the thing that I've really loved that I wasn't expecting is it gives notification that your animal, not that it's not moving, but that it's not moving like normal. And at first I was like, what's this for? And then one of my goats was like, this animal isn't moving properly. And so I went and looked and searched and found the one. And it had been, I don't know if it fell out of a tree. Mine like to climb trees, or if it was just playing with its buddies, but it broke off the cap of its horn. And it was really, really sore. And it was laying about because of this broken horn. And so then I was able to keep an eye on it to make sure flies weren't getting at it and just whatever. And then it just happened this last week. One of my goats had a thiamine deficiency. And it told me ahead of time, this goat is not feeling great. And then I was able to pull it and get it doctored before it got too serious. So that's been amazing. So yeah, just general health of all my animals and if they're moving differently from one week to the next. And then it's another feature I love. Oh, just it telling me, when an animal, we have really terrible predators where we're at. And so, the warnings we get when my goats hit a fence, I'm able to get up and make sure that there's not a mad rush and that I don't need to get to the area to make sure our lion's not attacking the herd. So I don't know, it just gives me so much comfort to know that my animals are safe and happy and within their boundary. So
awesome. That does sound really, really helpful. Matt, what about you?
There we go. I think one comment is you have to have an end in mind, I think, to be successful with virtual fence. That's what I should have said first in the last time, which is why I made it on time, Robin. And I think the answer to this question is what made me think of it, because everybody has different things that they're considering success. I already mentioned my favorite one, which is the passive gathering that we're using when we're getting cattle, kind of close to the gate we're going to go out of, or we're letting the cattle move themselves. And it is surprising how far they'll go, how fast. We turned a group of cows out the other day on a Monday night, and by Tuesday noon, I had 30% of the cattle were 3.5 miles away at the far opposite end. And so kind of seeing how that distribution is happening in real time is interesting. And then the other thing that we've had several attempts at, and we're trying to kind of learn too, we're trying to understand which of our bulls are doing their job. So I have my bulls are coated in pink, and the cows are in several other colors. And so we haven't got to the point of really understanding it yet, but I can envision a world where if you see a pink bull laying under a tree, you're not worried about if he's sick. You're just worried that he's lazy, or maybe he doesn't like girls. I don't know. But one way or the other, we're starting to think about how to use it for things that actually drive profitability, right? If you're in the cow calf business, you need a calf. If you're going to have a calf, you need a bull who doesn't sleep all day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, so looking at the time, I think we have time for maybe one more. So for company reps, what is your protocol for power outages or loss of connectivity in natural disasters and that kind of situation? How are you getting information to the landowners, wildfires, that type of stuff where they need to have those fences and move those cows quickly? We can start with Charlotte.
So, obviously, an emergency situation is to be avoided. We have had very few in our time that we've been in the US in particular. In the event of a full system has gone down situation, all of the collars will retain the current field boundary that has been loaded into them. So whatever boundary cows are currently being held in will be maintained for 24 hours. If during that time you're able to get out to your herd and you want to move them manually, you just need to give notification to somebody. So that can just be done the old-fashioned way. You'd either communicate directly with me or somebody else at Halter that you've communicated with, and they can drop those boundaries automatically. And if you need that to be elongated, say you have gone on vacation or left the ranch for some reason during this time, we can also prolong them as needed.
Great. Thank you. I lost order. Cheyenne.
Yep. So going to be similar. Obviously, if there was an outage or a fire and you need to gather them, we can, you can drop the boundary to physically gather them. We are working on emergency pause. So all the neck bands could be paused. It does store the coordinates for 24 hours. So you would have 24 hours to gather, contain, and then after that 24-hour rule, that's animal welfare, it's going to drop the boundary, but you would have 24 hours to gather and contain or to move your animals. Within that 24-hour window.
Great. Thank you. Jack?
Yeah, very similar. So if like a cell tower were to go down, then the GPS satellites would still contain the animals in their most recent boundary. One helpful tool is that you can approach the animals, and if you are within 300 feet from them, you can, via Bluetooth, deactivate all the collars.
That's great. Awesome. And Nathaniel?
So the time it takes to take down a boundary is really dependent on the quality of coverage wherever the animal is. So those in good coverage, they're going to get those updates pretty quickly. Whereas in weak or no coverage, that is a challenge. And what we do is we work with our ranchers to come up with a proactive plan to configure a set of boundaries that are to be used in emergencies that if you are anticipating say a wildfire or something like that, that we'll work with you hand in hand in advance to set up your boundaries in a way to provide means to move your cattle to a safe haven as quickly as possible.
Great. Thank you. And any of the ranchers on the call, have any of you experienced anything like that where you needed to change it very quickly? No? Well, good. I hope that continues. Good deal. So we're about at time. A lot of the questions that came in were very specific either to one company or a very specific situation. And so I just wanted to let all the participants know that we are going to be sending out a follow-up email that'll have the recording of this, and it'll have the contact info for each of the companies represented here. I'll check in with the ranchers. I don't want to share their information. I did get from the companies. But anyways, so we will have that email go out to you, and you can reach out to the specific company that you had more questions on. And then we also have the webinar next week that's going to focus more on the cost and pricing. And so if we have time, we can reference more of the questions then. Sarah, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't have anything to add except for just thanking all the presenters. I appreciate you taking the time and for presenting, and the ranchers also for taking the time to share your personal experiences. Really appreciate you all being here. And then I also just want to highlight, let's see if it goes. Next week, we have our cost considerations and funding opportunities webinar from 12 to 1. So if you want a further breakdown of the different costs and pricing for the different companies, and also wanted to see the funding opportunities available if you're interested in getting started with virtual fence, that will all be discussed in next week's webinar. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week.